Hello and welcome to the NWA Virtual Conference Investor Conference in what is Series 8 of the event. I'm Andrew Gagan. Terrific to have your company this morning. And we've got three big days of company presentations coming up. Today we have a focus on technology before health and biotechnology companies tomorrow, and a range of other industrials on Wednesday. So let's get straight to our first presentation from ikeGPS, ticker code IKE. And the IKE platform allows electric utilities, communication companies, and their engineering service providers to increase speed, quality, and safety for the construction and maintenance of distribution assets. Focused on the North American market, IKE's revenue engine is driven by the number of enterprise customers subscribing to the IKE platform and the volume of assets called transactions being processed through the IKE software. The company recently released its second quarter update, which for a second straight quarter running closed record value of contracts with more than $11 million in total. Just a reminder too, if anyone in the audience would like to submit a question at the Q&A session at the end of the presentation, please do so by using the Q&A panel on your screen. Let's get straight to the company now. And CEO and Managing Director of IKE, Glenn Mills. Glenn.
Thank you, Andrew, and thanks for everyone for taking the time to hear an update from IKE. So what I'll try to do is just pulse through some slides here in 15 minutes or so, and leave 10 minutes for Q&A at the end. So as Andrew described, we're IKE. We're building a pole operating system for the North American market. We're based in Colorado, and our mission is to dramatically speed up the deployment of networks, power networks, and telco networks across the North American market. So I'll run through some update slides now. Sorry, bear with me while I just get the controls working. I'll come back to the executive summary. There's a lot of words there, but the following slides cover the key attributes of that executive summary. So, as I mentioned, we're a pole operating system company. We're a software business, and we target two critical infrastructure industries in North America. The first is the electric utility market. So, if you look at that power pole that's failed in terms of this picture, you can just see the number of companies and amount of infrastructure that's attaching to a single distribution pole. You've got all of the communications, cable TV, telco assets that sit at the left-hand side, and up to the right-hand side is the power infrastructure that sits at the top of a power pole in North America. Really unglamorous, but a really essential industry. A lot of heroic people and companies doing important work across this industry. There's more than 3,200 electric utilities in the North American market. They're all natural monopolies. 220 million distribution poles and growing across North America, and they require just constant engineering assessment, engineering design, and engineering management to avoid causing the next catastrophic failure, fire, failing through weather events. A lot of legal liability as well in this market in terms of getting it wrong, in terms of maintaining or constructing your network in a way that's not meeting either regulatory or code compliance. And the last thing is that there's a mandate to speed up fiber and 5G deployment to share all these poles with the communications companies that are in a race to build their networks. And so we dramatically improve the engineering design and the engineering maintenance process around these assets. And I'll show you how we do that in some following slides. The second really important market, and we're just at the front of a real wave here in North America, is really around closing the digital divide. The US market is a long way behind much of the rest of the world in terms of deploying fiber and 5G networks. And it's just some really large macro market trends driving this industry. $350 billion plus over the next 5 years being invested into building fiber and 5G networks. Much of it's going on to distribution power poles, which is where we play. and around 1,000 engineering companies that support this work in terms of network development. For these guys, our value proposition is about dramatically speeding up the network deployment process. They're all in a race competing with each other to get their networks built. We've been focused on this market for 5+ years in terms of building our platform software, but also market development and building trust and relationships across the industry. We're working with close to 300 enterprise customers today that subscribe to the platform. Some of the biggest names on the communications side, AT&T, Crown Castle, Verizon, and a host of others, and also 5 of the largest 10 electric utility, investor-owned utilities operating in the market. And for us, growth is around, we're looking to build decades-long relationships with our customers. We're in this polls focus of ours is something that we've got a decades-long view, and that's the length of relationship that we're looking to build with our customers. So growth comes from expanding inside of existing customers, as well as winning new accounts over time. Just in terms of how we're tracking from a financial perspective, the chart on the left represents new contracts that we've won through the past 5 quarters. We had some impacts with COVID through Q1 and Q3 of last year, when COVID was particularly severe in terms of lockdowns. Our market's bounced forward strongly since January of this year. We've closed about $11.5 million in new contracts through the last 2 quarters. That's against a $9.3 million revenue year last year. And it feels like just a lot of momentum in our market more generally. And then the chart on the right, I think, is the really important one for investors in terms of where we're going as a platform business for polls. The green and the blue bar in that chart represents subscription revenue, recurring subscription revenue, and transaction revenue, which is how our business model has evolved over time. So that's developing in a positive way. The next 2 charts just give a more granular view from chart 2 on the prior slide. The green chart here shows transaction volume, which is the red dots. So nearly 60,000 transactions that we're billing across our platform last quarter, and against PCP, that was more like 20,000. So that's growing. And we see transaction revenue as being the real driver of growth for the company. And our business model, if you go to the chart on the right, the blue bars here represent subscription revenue from the number of enterprise customers. So we've got a subscription revenue backbone, and the more often our customers use the platform to process assets, we bill them for that, and that's the combined driver of growth for IKE. And the chart here, these slides will be available after the call, just detail the specifics of the charts that we just looked at. I think more generally, standing back from IKE, again, the chart on the left, the blue bar, represents recurring subscription transaction revenue. FY21 had some COVID impacts, but you can see the absolute and relative increase in terms of the much more dependable, high quality revenue that our platform's generating, and we've had greater than 60% CAGR growth in terms of the recurring sub and transaction revenue piece. So in terms of what we do, when we talk about building the pole operating system, or the pole operating system company for the North American market, we've got 4 solutions available today. Our customers can use all or one of these solutions, and we'll go into some detail around what these look like in practice. But the revenue model is platform subscription plus transaction fees that layer on top of use of our platform. And again, I'll show you with some slides, because a picture, I think, paints 1,000 words in terms of how our solutions look. But in terms of why customers buy, with the IKE Office solution, it's around dramatic efficiency improvements, both in the back office, where the really expensive engineers spend their time. We drive about 3 times greater productivity in terms of doing analysis and reporting of power pole assets. And we also reduce time in the field in terms of capturing power pole data and power pole information. Our IKE Structural product is a pole loading software platform that lets electric utilities get comfortable that they've designed their assets to engineering specifications and to regulatory code and to their own internal specifications. And so 5 of the 10 largest electric utilities rely on our PoleForeman product for structural analysis. And I'll come to IKE Insight a bit further in the presentation. This is our artificial intelligence software solution that can process data and deliver insights, no matter where that data comes from, if it comes from drones or smartphones or from existing database information. And we think this can be a really interesting lever for growth moving through the balance of this year and into the coming years. So in terms of what our software looks like in practice, and I apologize if you've sat in on a previous NWR presentations, I know you've seen these, but for those that haven't, this is looking into our IKE Office solution. This is what our software looks like to a user. So an engineer has gone and captured a single photograph of that power pole in the middle in the field, and then the data syncs up into our cloud-based system. And someone sitting in the back office is then able to dimension and classify everything that's attached to that particular pole, who owns it, where it is, if it meets code, compliance, etc. So that's a look into that software. And then if we move to this next slide, so keep in mind the picture that is here. This is a view into our IKE Structural software. So it's taking real world information and turning it into CAD models so that engineers and customers can now design their asset. And our PoleForeman or IKE Structural solution is one of the 4 accepted standards in the North American market, and it provides a very privileged position in terms of accessing these really large infrastructure businesses, because they rely on this software every day across their entire distribution engineering team. And lastly, again, what's a driver for a communications company? So why is Crown Castle standardizing on IKE for all of their distribution pole projects? Because we do things like we automate processes like this. So this is a permit application. So Crown Castle or AT&T or whoever it might be, they want to attach fiber to someone else's power pole. They have to make an application to the owner of the pole. And we automate the process and take what has historically been a very manual and error-prone process and make it automatic. It also becomes a lot more trusted for whoever's processing it and providing the application approval. And so we do very specific things across this space. A question that we are always asked is the level of market penetration and how we see the market opportunity developing over time. And I think an important thing to understand around distribution power poles is that there's one, for every one pole, there are many engineering transactions and opportunities for us to create value, and also opportunities for us to generate revenue through each of these transactions. So the example here is just one power pole. An engineering service provider assesses it for a telco. The telco does a make-ready engineering process. It's another transaction. The communications company then attaches their fiber. It's another transaction. The utility will go out and do an as-built survey to make sure it was built the way it was designed. And on it goes. Another company will come and do an assessment around vegetation encroachment on the pole. So it's the same asset that's getting assessed over and over again. And every utility typically has to assess their entire network over a 5-year period indefinitely. So about 20% of distribution assets are being assessed per annum on an ongoing basis. And there's a really interesting ecosystem opportunity, and we're starting to see some proof points here where the pole owner, which tends to be the electric utility. They've got a lot of communications companies attaching. They're all using engineering service providers, and they tend to work across a range of utilities, and it's a circular opportunity for us. So once we penetrate one customer, we find opportunities to move across the ecosystem. We've got some really interesting examples now. One in Nebraska, for example, where Nebraska Power, the power company, standardized on IKE. All of the communications companies need to use IKE. Their engineering service providers are using IKE and going off to other states and other places, and that provides a really interesting network effect. It does take time, but it's an opportunity to really embed and expand across the market. And an example of this, I'm just going down to a micro customer example. So this is a customer evolution that we've announced over the past 9 months or so. It's a Fortune 100 electric utility group. They've got 6 very large electric utilities in their holding company. One of them was a $30,000 IKE structural customer. We cross-sold our IKE Office solution last year in about October for a $700,000 project. We expanded that in April of this year, adding another $1.2 million, selling our IKE Analyze solution. And we're very early on in terms of their specific network project. And it's just one application, and they're a much larger group who share best practice. And it's an example of the way that customers can grow if we deliver well over time. So just a couple more slides. We acquired a business called Visual Globe in January of this year. AI is a horribly overused term in so many industries at the moment. But Visual Globe, now called IKE Insight, is a true AI and machine learning platform specifically for poles. And why it's really interesting, I think, for IKE, for our customers and for investors, is it brings us into many more potential applications and use cases around power poles. So some really interesting new segments that are very sizable and recurring in nature across an electric utility. So taking us into vegetation and fire mitigation programs, pole inspections, processing huge amounts of drone data and LiDAR data that's coming from third parties, and also doing work with utilities' existing data and processing transactions from data that they've had in their business for periods of time around pole audits and other items. So we're really excited about the team that came on board, just outright expertise around AI and also the pole market, and also some early proof points in terms of the IKE Insight business. So as I mentioned, we're headquartered in Colorado, USA, which is where I am. Our team here, it's a team of pole experts, and we have a direct sales model, a direct delivery model, and we're looking to build the best customer experience and brand in the industry. And we think there's a real opportunity to focus on CX in particular. And we're, so far we've been lucky to be able to attract just some brilliant people out of the pole industry. It's a very unglamorous space that we're in, and we're able to bring people across from electric utilities and telcos typically, who are looking to make an impact on the industry. And likewise, we're fortunate to have a great board of directors with a lot of depth of industry expertise. Most recently, we brought on Eileen Healy, based in San Francisco. She's a veteran in the communications and utility market, and currently, works with the very biggest players across that space. I've known Eileen for quite some time. Been delighted to bring her onto the board recently. So I'll pause there, and Andrew, be happy to take questions.
Glenn, thanks very much for that. Yeah, we do have a few questions coming your way. First of all, of your 298 enterprise clients, how many of those are legacy clients? And is your strategy to cross-sell or upsell to the new model?
Yes, it's a good question, and we are cross-selling and upselling. We're starting at the top of that list, and we've brought across 8 of our top 10 customers from our legacy business model, and it does have a dramatic impact in terms of the revenue model for us. So we moved, just one recent example, a group, it's an engineering company. We've moved them from being about $100,000 per annum customer to a $500,000 plus per annum customer. They get all the benefits of our new technology and our new platform, but there's a lot of value in it for those legacy customers, and obviously it's a preferable position for IKE.
And Glenn, just in terms of your most recent contract wins, how many of those, or how long are they for, and are they with existing or new clients?
I think in terms of the deals that we have announced or talked to and releases have all been with existing customers. So it's been expanding across Crown Castle or their ecosystem. We've had a material contract with another communications group who we've worked with through 3 prior contracts. And I do think it's an important point that the industry that we're in, customers they don't just buy the best technology, they buy teams and companies that they've learned to work with and they trust, and that they believe are going to be around for the long term. So it does take time, longer than we all want it to take, and longer than we think it should based on the productivity that we drive. But the biggest revenue growth opportunity for us comes from existing accounts, but of course we're looking to continue to expand the footprint.
Okay, this question from Adam. Given the transaction revenue is a key to IKE's revenue growth, how is pricing set for transaction-related work such as poll analysis?
So we work really hard on pricing, and we've raised pricing each of the last 4 years in terms of the different products that we offer. So we don't try to serve the entire market, and there are some levels of the market that are at lower price points that we don't try to play. So yeah, it's a long-winded answer. We're constantly looking at value, understanding what the alternatives are for our customers, and then making sure that we can present good, better, best pricing at a package level to our customers, that lets us price maximize. So it is something that we focus extremely hard on.
All right, just a follow-up question from Adam. Are there any existing customers who have signed up to utilize IKE Insight, and when do you expect this offering will start to impact revenue generation?
Yes, we have. We've got some, I think, quite compelling reference customers now in place that have been delivered to. We recently announced a 3-year master services agreement with a tier 1 communications company, and the pipelines, again, it's an earlier stage initiative, but our pipeline for new opportunities is strong for IKE Insight. So we're cautiously optimistic about its ability to ramp. The industry really needs some of these insights, and needs the processing power, and the true AI, which is what we're looking to deliver. So we're cautiously optimistic.
Okay, and Glenn, a question also, in fact, that question has just gone, but I might just ask you myself. Obviously, in the US, under the Biden administration, they're planning a massive infrastructure rollout. Do you see that benefiting your company?
Well, yes. There's a chunk of that infrastructure plan that's further expanding rural broadband investments and initiatives, and that's super interesting to us because those infrastructure projects will be run generally by the electric utilities. They're becoming telcos, building their own fiber network. So it expands, that potential footprint fiber companies beyond the 200 or so communications groups that are focusing on, the big metropolitan service areas, etc. So yeah, potentially it's another tailwind.
All right, and a question from Christopher, who says he appreciates your time. When you refer to upselling 8 out of your top 10 customers, are these being upsold to self-serve on the IKE platform or to IKE Analyze? What's the difference between the two?
Generally, they've been upsold to both, and that's something that's I think is really interesting. So typically, these customers, they've got all of our customers are very, very good at what they do, and that they're trying to find better and more efficient ways to do things. Our sales model is to provide customers with our technology on a self-service model, and that's where we're charging them a transaction fee, but they're doing a lot of the work in terms of back office engineering. What we're finding is when they're running into capacity constraints or further projects, that they're then looking to our IKE Analyze product. That's where they send raw information from the field into IKE, and IKE uses its software to process their data in the back office, and then we send back outputs to those customers. So we sort of see that transition typically. They start with just using our platform, and they move into that IKE Analyze product environment.
Okay. And Glenn, where is the biggest revenue opportunity? Is it with utilities or communications providers?
I take it, taking a 10-year view, the electric utility opportunity is just enormous. It's not a winner-take-all market. It's far too big for that. But if we're successful delivering quality and reliability and productivity to those customers, that's where they're very sticky customers. And take a 10-20-year view, I believe that's where the biggest opportunity is. We've got a 5 to 7 year tailwind from what's happening with communications, and that tends to be cyclical in terms of the level of investment and activity. But we're at the start, we're at the relative start of what's happening with fiber and 5G.
Glenn, thanks very much for that comprehensive wrap and presentation, and thanks for joining us from IKE.
Great. Well, thanks, Andrew. Thanks, everyone.